Good day, brothers and sisters. Well, the show that we're actually going to play today is from summer of 2022. It's the first show I've recorded as I'm bringing the podcast back. As I'm reflecting on the show, I'm reflecting on my life. And I actually find this to be a very good show. And so enjoy it. Listen to Susan Ham. She is endorsed by Bob Proctor. If you guys don't know who Bob Proctor is, look it up. He recently passed away, unfortunately, but he's one of those enlightened people that have an amazing advice and capacity for success.
Hello there and welcome. This is Bob Proctor. Do you know, for over 50 years, I've traveled all over the world helping people understand themselves and how to make the changes they have to make to do the things they want to do and live the way they want to live. School doesn't teach us how to win. School doesn't teach us how to earn money or understand ourselves. Some time ago, we had a lady join us, Susan Ham. She has a deep understanding of the information that you need to live the life you want to live. And she has a acute ability to read people.
Enjoy the show.
We will only believe what we repeat to ourselves and to the world over and over and over again.
I became obsessed with finding that certainty within myself and my heart because I became fed up with being blindsided by everyone and everything around me. The more time passed without tangible results, the more I became so hard on myself for wasting time and wasting money. Always take care of yourself and surround yourself with love all around you, friends, and just have fun. Start taking care of yourself. Start walking. Start moving your body, because the moving actually creates a positive adrenaline and energy.
Once you turn your focus to changing your own patterns of thinking and faking out your own ego's negative dialogue and reprogramming with more positive belief systems, then you will see how few people will question you, where you will never need to lie. We just have to force our ego to believe something that we've never believed before.
I've worked my entire career with men, and for a reason, because I don't waste time. I'm a woman because I am physically different from a man. When I ask the question, what is it that you really want in life? They have no clue. Freedom without consciousness is actually toxic. You know, we never should tell parents how to parent your children, because I don't like to take experience away from human beings. Your mistakes and everything you've done creates your empowerment today. My definition of self-love is mastering the art of knowing how to say no and when to say yes. Remove yourself from the noise regularly.
Susan Ham, I'm so glad you are back in my life.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. Master coach, mentor. Now you are a podcast host and a producer. And I'm super interested in this. We're going to talk a lot about this. But to introduce you to our audience, I got to ask you a question. Are you a woman?
I am a woman. Again.
What is a woman?
I'm a woman because I am physically different from a man. So whether that's a man or not doesn't really matter. But I am Susan Ham, a woman, which makes me different from anybody else that's a man. That's all it is.
When I first met you, you had an impact on my life. You really helped me to get through some stuff as a mentor, as a life coach. And I really appreciate your help. You actually, to define you, all those titles that I just gave you, they really mean nothing. In my opinion, you're an angel. In my experience, you're an angel. And the way you came in and with this pure and unconditional love that you helped me get through my stuff, which is compared to other people was nothing really. But it mattered to me at the time. I felt like I was at the brink. I was broken. I was falling apart. I was abandoned. You know, that's how I felt. It doesn't mean all those things actually happened to me. And you really helped me to pull through, and you with your unconditional love specifically. But now I noticed that you made that shift, and that's why I asked you those specific questions about women. You have this interesting podcast where you interview those amazing women throughout the show, and that women that have impact on you specifically on the world? And why did you make that shift from interviewing, or dealing with men and going focusing specifically on women?
Yes, that's a great question, because a lot of people think I've been in the women's space for a long time, but in fact, it's only been 3 years. And I've worked my entire career with men, and for a reason, because I don't waste time, right? To me, time is valuable. My life is valuable. So therefore, I will go and achieve what I want. And I love working with men because they are able to stay focused. So that was the reason why for 20 years, I stayed in the male-focused industries. And when I retired in 2016, I realized that when I started talking to more women, I started realizing, oh, there's a big problem in the world where there's blame on gender, where the women are blaming the men and the men are not saying anything because they don't know what to say. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I have to go into a space where I have to educate the side that really is the most problematic one, is that women don't understand men. Men has never understood women, so it doesn't really matter about that. But it's up to us women who are very powerful, because emotions are very powerful. We can overpower any logic by bullying with emotions. So therefore, I went into the space in teaching women how to emotionally understand themselves so that we can tell the men what we need and what is needed, because that's what men need. So that's why I started the podcast Heart of Truth, because we really need to get to the heart of truth of everything. Like, it's not about blaming.
So what you're saying, women are crazy.
You know what? Emotions can drive us crazy. And believe me, I am one to say, when I did an IVF in 2008 to try to have children, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought I was just always under control, because I knew how to operate like a man and still look like a woman. I don't want to look like a man, right? But I realized that when I was pumped with more estrogen, because my ovaries weren't responding, I'm getting very personal here, but it doesn't matter. It's the heart of truth.
Well, like personal, go ahead.
Yeah. So they pumped me like 6 times more because my ovaries were as stubborn as I am, right? Mm-hmm. And I went into like overdose estrogen. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes the physiological difference between a man and a woman. A man has more testosterone and operated more testosterone than women with estrogen. That's the only main difference physically. Mm-hmm. So when I was pumped with all that estrogen, I had no control. I went crazy. I was screaming at everybody, and I do not do that, right? I was screaming at my stepson, who was cowering in the corner, and I had no control. It was almost like I was looking at myself out of control. And I realized at that moment the vulnerability that I had as a woman, and how many women struggle with losing control because they cannot handle their emotions. And then what I call vulnerability hangover is what a lot of women go through. They scream and scream because they lost control. And then after, they feel so much guilt. And so that's why I went into the space of helping women, so that our men can have more leadership in the world of emotions.
It's interesting what you're saying. So basically, when my wife makes an excuse, oh, this is my time of the month, and she blames the hormones for your actions, it's actually truth.
It's so true. And for a man to understand that pain, where we don't have any control, men have absolute control over their emotions. Except when a woman takes them into their emotions and they can't control it anymore, because love is what keeps us going in life.
Yeah, absolutely love this answer. But I want to stick on that hormonal thing. Like right now, we observe how important a diet is, and specifically here in Canada, in Montreal, we're exposed to a whole bunch of organic food, and is actually, you can see there's a crisis of food sources throughout the world right now. And with genetically modified foods, and the way, if some people are vegan, some people eat animals still, and especially animals are full of hormones. And I know it affects men in terms of their testosterone levels. And obviously now you're saying it also affects women. So a lot of times I think we need to watch in terms of not what only we say, but also what we eat, in terms of being just trying to survive through the day. But now you're giving people an excuse. Now you're people an excuse for their behavior, saying, oh, I must have ate some terrible chicken. It was full of hormones, and now I'm acting this way. How much of that is true in terms of personal responsibility, and what the guilt feeling that you're talking about when people, especially women, feeling guilty after the outbursts, and then like, oh, let's make up and kiss now. I'm sorry, I felt bad. Is there any kind of solution to this kind of situation?
Great question, because I'm not for excuses, right? So I think the important thing is that we all take responsibility to do something to change what doesn't work, right? It's number one, identifying what doesn't work in our life, right? But it starts with, what is it that we want? And that's the main question. It's interesting how over the years I've worked with thousands of women, and I can tell you honestly, and that's not just women, it's men too, but men, let's keep men aside for a second. When I ask the question, what is it that you really want in life? They have no clue. They have no clue. And it's only because we women weren't educated to focus on ourselves. Physically, we're trained to nurture. That's why women have babies. That's why men don't. Women have babies because we have eyes in the back of our heads. We can multitask and see everything and be focused on everybody else and everything else except ourselves.
Well, you're going controversial, like some across the border people saying like, well, men can give birth.
Hey, whatever they want. If that works for them, all I know is that everything out in life is an illusion. It's based on what you see, what you want to see. You can change your perception around things. You can change your understanding on things, but it has to be for women connected to what is driving their heart. And the moment we get to the heart of the truth of why you exist and what you want, then we can create a plan. But if you don't have a vision of who you are and what you want and what makes you happy, because I could tell you one thing, when I was going crazy, I remember the moment I felt even more crazy was when my husband said, just tell me what you want. Just give me an instruction manual. Just tell me exactly. And I thought, oh my God, I don't even know how to tell you. And that's when I realized there's a problem.
So the problem lays in existential crisis, really. We constantly actually, the way I understand, let me translate what you said for myself. We constantly are told who we are and who we're supposed to be without actually understanding and recognizing who we are for real. And that's why maybe I asked you that question in the beginning. Are you a woman? And what is a woman? You identify as one. But beyond that, you're also a human being. You are part of the creation, whatever the creation is. What is a greater understanding of you? Like, how would you describe yourself beyond being a woman?
I am just a human being on this earth with a soul, with a purpose. And I spent my entire life connecting with my purpose. The reason why I made that impact on you is because when I met you, I only saw you without what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. I didn't know you acted. I didn't know anything about your life except what I saw in front of me, which is the most important thing. I don't care for labels.
Let me qualify myself. I'm surrounded by women. I have 2 daughters, I have a wife, I have 2 sisters, I have a mother. And those are the people who are probably most influential in my life in terms of how much attention I get from them and how much attention they receive from me. And I'm not saying it's much, but it's the most out of my immediate surrounding. So I'm heavily influenced by women. I would consider I was raised by women, my grandmother specifically. And women in my life had an enormous impact. I also had a female coach for my basketball when I was a teenager. What I noticed was, first of all, obviously women had an enormous impact on me. But what I noticed was there's a direct relationship between women and strength, which is not obvious right away because we usually associate men with being really strong. So in my experience, I'll find women being way stronger than men in certain ways. And also, I believe women are the ones who teach us freedom, especially the ones that recognize their own freedom And this is where the dilemma, women throughout the history didn't really experience much freedom. Freedom of existence, freedom of thought, freedom of choice. They're always limited. But now that I see the world is changing, I'm not necessarily seeing women getting that freedom, because now they are taught, again, how should they think versus being themselves. And that's, to me, this is where I see a direct problem with this, because now we're again told how we should be, how we should think, without actually exploring and becoming those free and independent, truly independent women, independent of what society tells us to think.
Well, you bring up another subject which is really important, which is the concept of freedom, right? I'm all about freedom. Freedom from self, though, is what I focus on, right? Because we are our worst enemy. And what we feel about ourselves is how we see the world and what's going to happen in our life. But when you're talking about women and freedom, yeah, I have a bit of a problem with the whole women's empowerment movement, because I do believe that freedom without consciousness is actually toxic. So we need to be conscious. We need to know that, yes, you're allowed. This is where the whole democracy and freedom goes out of whack, because there is no wrong and right. That's why I live in the gray all the time. It's the safest place to be, but it is the most freeing place to be too, because I'm not bound by labels. I'm not bound by what needs to be right, what needs to be wrong. Yeah, maybe killing somebody is wrong. However, I also have compassion in what drives people to kill, what drives people to hurt others, what drives people to cause pain. Like, it's because everybody is in pain and no one knows how to reconcile with that pain.
So you're not a feminist. You would never identify yourself as a feminist.
No. I love women who do great things in the world. And that's why I highlight them on my podcast, because we need to bring the women powers that are more conscious up to the world, so that we can bring awareness that, yes, you can be a woman and you don't have to be weak. You don't have to be emotional. You just have to understand yourself and make sense of what doesn't make sense. And so the women that I do interview have done their work, right? And they are trying to make a difference in the world.
Well, I think women will make a difference in general in the future. I think next coming of Jesus is it will be a woman. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm a heretic, but that's my opinion. The
women in the world are going to love you for that one.
Don't tell my wife that. The interesting part, I think, in this discussion is, where men fits into this whole picture, because now we only see, I don't think it's just women being attacked with all kinds of, thought, so this is how we should think. But also I think man is being destroyed in terms of masculinity. We have terms like toxic masculinity, whatever that means. And it's the reason why I asked the original question, why are you a woman, is because people, even on the male side, cannot really identify themselves anymore, oftentimes because of the social stigma. I can't come out because then, I get fired, or I'm going to have problems at work, or it sounds ridiculous, but it's true in many cases. So it feels like there's actually war going on us as people in general, as humans, and our identity is being destroyed. I can maybe compare it in a way to the way family unit was destroyed in Soviet Union, maybe the way family unit is being destroyed in China, where the party, the government comes first. Your loyalties to the party and the government comes first, specifically for the kids. That's how kids been taught in school in Soviet Union, how kids are taught now in China, from what I understand. And also, I think there's the same kind of agenda lies in terms of destroying identities of men and women for the purposes, if they don't know who they are, and then they just easily control and manipulate it. Do you think it's sort of that kind of thing, that it's not really conspiracy, but self-evident thing that's going on right now?
Yeah, great question and great subject there. When we're bringing in sociology, because there is this conflict in the world is largely the reason of the upbringing in the home. The upbringing in the home is the most important thing if we want to really fix the conflicts in the world, whether it's wars, whether it's anything conflict, right? Political wars, economic wars, whatever the case may be. So it starts with family. So how we are, that's why my second season, I focused on experts in the area of family or children, psychologists, Catherine Ann Wilson, who is the human sex trafficking expert. And anything that drives awareness to parents to be the most conscious parents you can be, because these children grow up to create that world in the future. So if we want to change things, we can't fix what was already done. We have to create a whole new construct, which is family. So the only thing that governments or anybody in the world cannot touch is what happens behind your doors at home.
That's not really the case nowadays, right? They're trying to get into your family everywhere you go. And even here in Canada, like they want to know what's happening to your kids, including like the way you treat them, what you feed them, what medical attention they're getting. Maybe those are good questions, but the way they interfere, even with the religious aspects of your upbringing and what values are you giving them? I definitely think there's a place in a society where we need to pay attention to protecting children, but not telling parents how to raise their children.
No.
Because we know throughout the history, the state isn't right in most cases when they take, like in most recent history. And we don't have to even go into history. We know what's going on in China right now. Just look at that. So these, I guess, going straight into conspiracy, what is your favorite conspiracy that like present day? Do you like conspiracies?
No, I listen to all of them because I want to know what's going on, Conspiracy theories, no, I don't follow them at all. I mean, I know that there are so many conspiracies that came out through the COVID and through anti-government or stand up for your rights. And this is where I find that there has to be a medium point, right? I'm Chinese, right? So obviously I know what happens in China because I have friends in there, even though I wasn't born there. But I like to dig into what's really going on. It's like, you're Russian, you were in Russia. So of course I'm always curious in what you saw rather than what I hear, because propaganda is huge everywhere, right? In this part of the world, everywhere. But the conspiracy theories, they might have some truth, they might not. There's always truth in everything, even in comedy. Whatever comedy you put out there, you think it's a joke, but there's some truth to it, right?
100%.
So same thing with conspiracy theories. There's always some truth. It's just what kind of movie are you going to make out of the truth, right? And that's where discernment is so important when we're looking at information that's coming at us. As human beings, we're programmable. We have to be so discerning, but it requires a high level of emotional intelligence to know what to filter out and what to bring in, and how not to let that start feeding the weakness that we have, because we are drawing in the information. So unlike my husband, if he heard something that he doesn't like and it goes against his beliefs, he turns it off. Me, I'll keep listening because I want to hear. I think I was trained in the art of war. The Chinese, like it's the art of war. It's strategy. I want to hear. It's not going to affect me. I know exactly where I want to be. And I think that's what, we never should tell parents how to parent your children, because I don't like to take experience away from human beings. Your mistakes and everything you've done creates your empowerment today. If I stop you as a human being from experiencing life, I take away your empowerment. So as parents, we have to allow our children to become who they are meant to become and stand by them and give them choices and let them but it's emotional negotiation. It's not dictatorship. That's conscious parenting.
But also, like, parents should recognize the fact that they are going to make mistakes still, because it's, it's not like most of us have experience with having 20 children and, okay, by my 20th child, I have better understanding how to raise them. But by then I'm so tired that I can't even pay attention. I have my eldest kid raising my youngest kid, right? So there's always going to be some kind of disconnect between parent and child. If you recognize that, and you're conscious and aware of that, there's a chance that you're a good parent because you can go back and fix it in a way that you can understand that you're not always going to be perfect as a parent, whatever that means. I don't even know what it means to be a perfect parent.
There's no such thing.
There's no such thing. Poseidon, how do you discern when you receive information, like what's conspiracy, what's not conspiracy? Like what is your filter?
Can you repeat the question?
How do you filter information? Like you know, there's so much information on the internet right now. And when you receive it, like how do you know? Like how do you like? Okay, this is way out there. This is crazy. This is even for conspiracy theories. Way too
I just look at it from an entertaining aspect. Let me. Is this funny? Is this funny to me? I don't know. Just because we just want to have fun in this life, right? People just want to have fun. They want to enjoy themselves. Considering the line of work I'm in, I just ask myself. I don't even ask if it's true or not. If it's true, that it's time that's going to tell that. That's not my responsibility to do that. I'm just gonna receive the information. Can I have fun with it? Yes. Let's talk about it. No, I don't care. If it's negative, not for me.
That's an interesting point he brings up, right? He's not focusing on negative. He's focusing on joy in life. Thank you, Poseidon, for this beautiful
That
input.
is so good. That's a good strategy to stick by. Whatever brings you joy, it's so important.
I think people take themselves too seriously. Even us right now, I think we're too serious at this point talking about serious things, really. But joy is part of the ego that we experience in here. And most people way too serious nowadays and without recognition of the fact that we're here to also have fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's not all about, and face it, I think we are conditioned from young age in the Western society. Look at our schedule. You know, you take kids to daycare from like age of 2, where they go through the routine, 8 to 4 or 8 to 6, whatever that routine is. Then you have preschool, then you have high school. And then preschool and high school, it's even worse because they're not just bound to routine in school. They also have routine after school. And I'm not talking about extracurricular activities. I'm talking about things like homework, which is ridiculous. I mean, if you're self-employed, you're always working. But if you work in the corporate world and you're done by 5, you're not taking your homework with you because then pay me extra, right? And some employees get away with that, some don't. But I think we condition to take ourselves way too seriously with career movements and how we need to be placed in the society in general. And again, we forget our own identities for parts that we are not actually having fun. We're not having joy.
Whatever feeds our heart with joy is usually the right barometer, right? But then we have to recognize what's joy and what's addiction to pain, right? Because sometimes I've seen people misunderstand pain as joy. But passion is the only thing that drives us in life. So keep things fun. I mean, my job is very intense. I'm dealing with people's fears all the time to drive them through to achieve their goals. So it can be very dark subjects, but because I need joy. Otherwise, I can't do my work. I don't work if I don't have fun. I mean, because I don't need to work. So therefore, if I'm going to work, I'm not going to torture myself. So I think bringing lightness to very dark things is the way to go. Because we're not going to be able to hide away from it. We live in a world. We have to interact with people all the time. And we can't control. Can't control what mood you're going to be in. I don't know what you're going to bring in from your day, right? So I have to be able to bring everything down to the lightest level so that we can get through it faster. If you drag somebody, it's going to take longer. So keeping things light and fun, but yet being able to deal with problems rather than avoiding is the skill that we all need to learn. But it takes everybody to be openly honest and communicative. And because communication is the freedom. Open communication and effective communication. Communication can be me yelling at you too. That's communication. Whether it's effective or not, that's another story.
But I think that's what we find interesting right now, especially in Canada. It's specifically with communication. People can't talk to each other. You liberal, I'm conservative. You Democrat, I'm a Republican. Whatever, you white, I'm black. I'm oppressed, you're not. We don't we can't find this middle ground because we have put all those labels on ourselves, and it's like, you can't understand me. It's cultural appropriation. I don't know, whatever excuses that they use. And the communication is also, I think, not what you tell to each other, but what you tell to yourself, which is going back to your identity. How do you see yourself? Who are you as a person? And like the important part is like, what is the foundation of you understanding who you are as a person? We're talking about self-love, love is the answer. What is love to you? Like, how would you describe love? Because a lot of people have a really perverse understanding of what love is. I think most people experience it as attachment, some kind of dependency on somebody else's feelings for them, or feelings for another person. But I don't see people, and it's very rare that you genuinely people in love with themselves.
Of course. My definition of self-love, and I'll give you my definition of love. My definition of self-love is mastering the art of knowing how to say no and when to say yes, right? Once you know how to say no and when to say yes, you've reached a certain level of self-love, right? That's when, because self becomes the priority, but yet not on an egotistical level. When you learn how to say no, you're not guilted. So you're not helping somebody. If I ask you to do something and you felt guilty and you're scared to say no, and you doing me any justice is not true giving. So that's my meaning of self-love. Love, a whole different concept, right? Love is, before I answer the question, I'm going to tell you, I asked children what that question is. So my 8-year-old nephews, they're twins, boys, right? Mm-hmm. And so they've been trained on this type of conversation with Auntie Sue since they were born. Love, right? They even believe in magic. One of them has a wand of mine that I've had for 12 years, and I gave him my magic wand because he believes in magic, because I teach children to keep believing in magic. Don't ever let go of the dream, right? And so I asked them one day, I FaceTimed them and I asked my sister, can I talk to the boys, right? I need to ask them a question, right? And so my sister said, okay, yeah, go get them. And they came on the screen on Zoom. And this was during COVID. They said, oh, Auntie Sue, do you need some more information for your book? They are my life coaches. Your children are your life coaches. They are the ones that know everything because they don't have all that buildup of junk, right? So I said, yes, I want you to answer me. What is love? What does it mean? I need you to help me write this chapter. And they're like, I thought you knew. So anyways, I said, you tell me what? One of them gave me a whole list. When you make somebody else happy, you love them, right? I mean, just such simple concepts. The other thing he said, he goes, oh, when I want to feel like love, I just go and play with a toy. Right? That he's in that space of love. And I thought, wow, that's a good one that I never even thought about. So he's in his own way is finding ways of how to stay in that space of love. So he'll go grab a toy if he's sad, right? To do something that somebody asks you to just to be nice. That's another one of them. So, and then the other one didn't know how to answer because he's so logical. He's not emotional. So the twins, one of them is a lot more emotional. The other one's very logical. So the other one said, well, you feel love when you feel love. That's such a guy answer, right? Like, love is love, whatever, right? Don't break it down. So what love is it's such a hard concept because it's so subjective. What I define as love is when you are receiving it in a way that you need to and being able to give it unconditionally, right? Without needing to. Your desire is to love. It's to love and to be loved. That's what it is. But most people, especially, let's say, the label of women that I work with, they don't know how to receive it. They keep giving. Their cup is empty. They haven't learned to receive. Men just need to receive it because they need the love to go and do what they need to do. It's like the gas station, right? But if the women or, that label is drained, there's no love to give. So self-love is knowing when to receive.
So it's Putin's fault. What you're saying is, he put Putin's taxed on gas now, and the gas is so expensive. And man, I like gas stations and stuff. And so it's again, we're back to it's the Russians.
Yeah. Well, in marriages, if you're in a heterosexual marriage, the man is needing the women as the gas station to fuel them with the love, so they can go out and do what they need to do to meet their purpose, to make everybody happy. Because to the husband or the boyfriend of man, all they want to do is to serve a purpose.
That's true. You know how I describe love? I actually agree with you on a lot of terms, but I come from a Christian background. So love to me is God, because God loves me unconditionally. That's my personal experience. It's not what I believe in. It's not what been taught to me, but that's what I've experienced, because I didn't really start to experience part of being Christian till later on in life. So it came very mature and conscious in a way that I understood God in my life. And I understood, to me, was the first time I experienced it meaningful and consciously is there was a gentleman, name is Bob Butts. He's transitioned. He's no longer with us. So I can't really thank him in person for this anymore. But I always use that as an example. I was coaching his kid basketball many years ago. And he came up to me and he just looked at my eyes and he told me, I have a lot of pain. I have a lot of pain in my eyes, and all I need is a hug. And he just hugged me. It felt weird because it's like, what is this? What does this guy want? Is this some kind of, am I being assaulted right here? Should I call the police? That thought went away instantly because his hug was genuine with no strings attached. He didn't want anything from me. He just really saw me like the way you saw me when you met me. He saw pain in my eyes. And I didn't feel like at a time that I was in pain. I'm a young adult. I'm going through everything that everybody else is going and all that stuff. But he felt that I felt lonely inside, and specifically for those purposes, because I didn't feel loved. And it didn't mean that somebody needed to love me, but I didn't feel love in general. And where's that love coming from? And so I learned later on that unconditional love, you can, like, even God in the Bible, if you read it, like, love thy enemy. Like, even the people that, what you're saying, that hurt you in a way, if you look past their behavior, and it's hard if you're in the war situation and you're being shot at and, your brethren's being killed. It's hard to go through that. But let's take a social situation, a traffic accident, misunderstanding at the line at the cash register, something like this. If you see past person behavior and you look at the person, this is just a whole bunch of behavior around the soul of a person. Now I'm going, okay, this is identify myself as I believe in something beyond, this is, I believe I'm a spirit having a human experience. And to me, I love the same spirit that's within that person too, that I know they carrying a lot of pain. I know they carry a lot of fear. I know they carry a lot of other stuff that I can look past and just love them genuinely for the same reasons that I want to be loved, the way I feel loved by God. So to me, it's sort of, I go back to foundation. And I think that's also what we're experiencing right now, that foundation. And again, you can pick your own denomination. It's not really about religion, but it's about high construct. Like, what is this all about? The question is why we're all here. What is Earth? Are you just born, you go to work, then you get married, you have children, grandchildren, you retire and you die? Like, what is the purpose of all this? Like, to me, and when we start talking about things like love and self-identity and self-love, it opens up this can. Now, what else can we talk about? What is the purpose of all this? And I think the purpose is being lost. And we're being focused on something else.
Yeah, you know what? And this is why where there's love, there's no conflict. Where there's light, there's no darkness, And so I think there was a time a few years ago where the talk of God would trigger me. and I would get angry because I have always been an advocate for freedom of expression, and I have seen abuse in that whole religious circle and indoctrination. I don't believe in it because it's a form of manipulation programming, not just religion, anything, government, religion, family, I mean,
I agree.
Culture. So I'm not into indoctrination, but over the last few years, I have met people like you and one of my best friends. She talks about God a lot, and she's on a big mission to make big change in the world. So when I'm coaching her through certain things, sometimes I'll tell her, you know what, go into the bathtub. Go sit and have a chat with God because he'll give you the answer. I'm not going to give you the answer, right? And she would do that and she would come out with the answers, and the freedom of, oh my goodness, I'm not stuck. I got the answer. And so I'm not afraid, because if that believing in God is your belief that keeps you in faith in a healthy, empowered way, then by all means, whatever it takes. But you're still holding on to your own power, though, and God is just guiding you with your own power. But not a lot of people are in that mindset, right?
You have agency. You make a choice. It's like your
Correct.
children. You can give your children everything. You can give them all the tools. You can teach them all the right things. You can give them education. You can treat them the best. You can take them to kung fu classes, extra math classes. You can love them unconditionally. But they still have to make choices as they grow up. And sometimes they may not make those choices that you want them to.
Yes.
But it's part of their experience. But if you have the trust that you taught them and gave them all the best tools, that through the experience, they're still going to come out all right at the end. But again, it's going back for self-love. I think it's what you said is key earlier in terms of like reflection. Our kids is our reflection. I think the first time I really felt to be a man, an adult, is when I felt a father. And I didn't feel to be a father the first time I saw my daughter. I think I started feeling a father as my daughter became more interactive in a way where I could interact with her in a meaningful way. Before that, it was all my wife. She was very nurturing. And I actually didn't know how to do with it. And then that probably also put a strain on our relationship, because as an amateur man at the time, I did not, it was more emotional versus understanding of my own condition at the time. But truly, now I understand that the kids is our reflection. And I know the things that I give to my daughter sometimes and maybe not necessarily what I should do, but it comes from this kind of good intention. And again, that's where I know like she's going to make choices based on what she sees from me as well. It's not like, don't play with your phone, Daddy, but you play with the phone all the time. Don't play with your phone and watch TV at the same time. Choose one, but you do that. So the kids, they pick up, they imitate. So again, like the best I can do for my child is to be the best me I can, And
they hold us accountable.
They hold us accountable to that,
Yeah.
and the innocence is also like is genuine, like you said earlier. The questions that my daughter asked me are genuine to her because she's not bombarded by all the conditioning that we've been bombarded throughout life. And I also understand people's as well, your understanding and perception of God, like. God sometimes, like the word God itself nowadays is scary. People's like, oh, religion, beliefs, oh, no, conditioning. I agree with them because I cannot describe God. If you ask me what is God to you, I was like, I can't describe it. I live here on earth. So I can describe what this table is. It's nice, square, 3 boards, sturdy legs, and there's lots of stuff on it. I can use it to eat from it. I could put a mic on it. I can describe that. But what is God? I cannot describe God with limited 26, letter English alphabet. God is infinite, and some say God, Father the Creator, say Mother Universe, fine. And I think that's even still limited because we cannot. There's something greater beyond just you and me sitting here at the table talking, and it's an existential question. Like again, going back to what's all this about? What is the universe? Is like what is this whole creation? Are we alone in the universe? Are they aliens or are they also created by God? Like it goes to a bigger question. But I also believe that's a distraction because it takes
is.
away from who you are.
Yeah.
And identifying yourself as this. So my identity lies within me, but I have the source within me, the way the universe is created. And that's why I use the word God, because I find this sort of commonality between the creation, between all of us, as well as the universe and earth itself. So that's how I relate to God without trying to explain it to you, because I can't.
I know what you mean, but I don't know if 90% of people will know what you mean. But yeah, you're right. I mean, God is, I mean, this is how I see it, not from my own personal experience, but I can see it because I can look at it and understand the dynamics and what happens with the human psyche and the heart and the mind. But God is within us. And if we love us, we love God. If we love God, we love us, right? That has to be that way. It has to be the starting point. But number two, I think we can also get trapped in what a friend of mine calls the transformational trap. I call it the seeking trap. We seek. We forget to live. We forget to experience. We forget to be present for what is around us, the gifts that we are now. And this is where conscious parenting is so important. Conscious parenting is different from any kind of parenting. Conscious parenting is knowing when to be present for that child, because that child only needs that one thing, is for us to be present. A child will know if I'm sitting there having dinner with my stepson, like when he was small, and he'll know if my mind is somewhere else. And how many parents do that? We're constantly chasing after the next thing. We can't even be present when that's all we need. Right now, I did a study last year where I asked one question to 100 people, and every single one of them said one thing. I said, what is it that you really want? Not dollars, what is it that you really want? And when I dove deep, every single one of them, 100 people, said connection with people. Connection. Love, connection.
See, I'm opposite. I just want to go to some empty island somewhere and be alone by myself most of the time. But it doesn't mean that I don't want to be connected. It absolutely doesn't mean that. I enjoy this a lot. I enjoy talking to you on the phone. I enjoy seeing other people, but on my terms.
Yeah.
And I think people that live in the city and surrounded by people, it's sort of like counterintuitive. Well, you have your neighbors, you have your friends, you have your Facebooks and all other kind of socials. You know, you connected technically, right, to everyone and everybody all over the world. You can pick up any of those communications, WhatsApps and Telegrams, and call anybody in the world anytime now. It's free as long as you have a device in your hand. You're kind of physically connected, but you're not spiritually or emotionally connected. I understand this the way if you're not connected to yourself, if you don't feel, and I think I learned that from you, and this is the way I interpret it. If you don't feel comfortable with yourself, by yourself, then it's hard to feel comfortable with anybody. And the moment you reach this level of comfort, being by yourself, with yourself, in an empty room, with a TV, with a book, with nothing, empty ball, but you feel comfortable with your own thoughts, with your own identity, you sort of become this super magnet, like that peaceful feeling that you project outwards. It's like the light for the night bugs, night crawlers to come towards it. And those connections happen either you want it or not. You will start to attract those connections instantly by going in. And it's counterintuitive, like, because most people, I need connection. And at the time, I think I listened to a podcast yesterday before the show. And Lady Catherine, right? She was talking about how there are addictions. People addicted to drugs and alcohol, pornography, and other addictions. But some people have this amazing condition where they're addicted to someone else present in their life. That this person would be a mentor, or mother, brother, girlfriend, sister. It doesn't matter, any person. That they have such an attachment to that person that they cannot be by themselves more than like a day. Like they need to reach out. And the reaction, the physical reaction, the jonesing for this kind of connection is the same as to a drug, which is like a there's almost like a chemical reaction. Now, it makes me believe going back to our original premise, it's hormonal in some level. So do you have any tools that you can share with people, like to kind of keep this balance of self sanity in terms of being self-present, self-conscious, self-loved? Like, what do you recommend in general? I know there's specific tools that you can use, and they can connect you and contact with you. We'll list all the things in our podcast. But the basic thing, what do you advise?
The basic thing is just remove yourself from the noise regularly. Spend more time in nature. I think that's the most healing thing for me. I mean, I grew up in the city. I've never even been to a country. Then I moved from Montreal to Hong Kong, which is 4 times worse in energy. And then I lived in Singapore. So when you're in cities like that, you don't even stop. And so when I met my husband, he's a country boy. He loves nature. And he's like you. He would go and tame deer and tame the raccoons in the wild rather than people, right? Whereas me, it's like, I need to go see some people. So when I first went to our country place with him, I was for 2 years going nuts. 2 years, I heard my own brain. And so I suffered through those consequences, but I learned now I can't wait to spend most of my time. I do spend most of my time in the country anyways now because I can work from anywhere, but I love nature. I love hiking. I love anything that there's tranquility because that is my moment to replenish my glass. And so for everybody out there, the main thing is get yourself out of the noise, right? It's a way of distracting and feeding our addiction to keeping away from ourselves.
It's interesting. Well, if you take it to a greater scale, a lot of people left Canada in the last 2 years, if they could, because of noise, because this is we're not living in a healthy environment. I don't mean COVID. Right now, everybody's bickering with each other, and there's a big disconnect and discontent with the government. A lot of people feel like a lot of immigrants that immigrated from places like China and Soviet Union, they feel like Canada's becoming very authoritative in that sense, and we're told to do, and they're escaping. But some people can't. Some people physically cannot move to a different country or live. Either it's a financial burden or they have some attachments like family that they cannot live. Do you have advice for those people how to find content and peace in a situation like this?
Yeah, you know what? That's where spending time alone, and you don't have to have a lot of money to just go by the lake or go by the riverside, just sit by the rocks or to walk amongst every park. Every city has a park. Every place has a park. Just to sit there in tranquility and just think about what is it that you want in your life. Like, just give yourself that time. It's self-care, right? That's the only thing that we can do. The other thing is, we're already trapped with people telling us what to do and then not knowing how to get away from it, right? So one of the things that I also teach people is don't go out there and reading and learning about everything. You don't need to learn about everything. You don't need to know everything. I think that's the superpower of how I keep my life so simple, so that I can deal with chaos, is because I don't complicate my mind. I don't read anything. I don't go and read all the news. I don't go and even if I do hear it, I know because my own barometer is so simple. So I know what to let in and what to keep out. And even if I hear something negative, it doesn't even hit me. And I've had those discussions with people. Even during COVID, I had a few friends that were friends, but no longer, because they couldn't respect the fact that I told them, I don't need to know. Right? I know, but I don't need to go and research, because a couple of my friends were pushing things on me, knowing who I am. And I kept saying, no, I don't need to know. And they're like, well, you don't know because you haven't researched. I said, no. That's all you need to know. and people don't respect no. And so I think that the message for everybody is when somebody says no, respect it. And then communicate, but don't communicate to push. We are human beings. Systems don't work. We have to create our own systems. And the only way you can find your own system is to spend that time alone where you're in your own, nobody could hear your thoughts. Nobody can hear you. You can just sit by the river and just think about, wow, what is it that I want? If nobody existed in this world, how would I create my life? And just keep doing that.
So you're going back to magic, right? So like a friend, Pantelis, we talk about this existential things with him and he disagrees. Basically, everything starts with your mind, right? You create something in your mind first.
Yes.
So you have to imagine it. You have to think about what you really want, how you envision yourself, and then those things happen, right?
Your heart is like a business plan. A business plan without a goal, a measurable goal, is never going to succeed. Same thing with our heart. What are your desires?
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt about desires. You said most people want a connection, right?
Yes.
What if, and I'm asking for a friend right now, what if they just want to retake Constantinople? I'm asking for a friend here.
So you're asking in terms of connection or the goal?
No, the goal. Like, what if they
goal.
just want to retake Constantinople?
Well, they can have that goal if they want. Whether they're going to succeed or not, that's another story. Right?
Yeah.
We're allowed to have any crazy goal we want. I mean, to me, it's not about the judgment of what's a good goal, what's a bad goal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could say that's a bad goal because who the heck's going to help you do that, right? But if people could say the same thing about Putin. It's like, well, he has a goal. He's doing it. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't. It looks wrong to me.
He envisioned it first.
What exactly? Yeah. He's had that vision forever. It wasn't
like 6 months ago he woke up and he says, I'm going to go into
this has been in the making and he's succeeding. Okay?
But I know why he's doing
passionate.
this. I know why he's doing this because I read the news this morning too. So the Greeks put up 80 tanks at the border with Turkey and they put artillery. So you already materializing your thoughts, right? Is that what it is?
Basically, yeah. I've done chess moves way ahead of everyone.
Done the chess moves.
Oh, you're my boy. You're my boy. I'm a chess player. I am so strategic. It sucks.
But it's actually an interesting thing he brings it up again, Poseidon. Thank you for this because
no problem.
There's definitely this is going on in the world. We are sort of like a Tower of Babel, right? Babel. We are disconnected from my languages, cultures, passports, etc. We're separated, and now we're separated by identities. And like identify, obviously, I was born in Russia. I'm definitely Russian, but I'm also Canadian. So like, am I Russian Canadian? Yes. I'm more than that. I'm a Quebecer. But that's something like this is part of my experience. But I also had an experience to live and work all over the world. So when people ask me where I'm from Earth. You know, I was born, I breathe air, I drink water. But like Poseidon said, I also have some emotional attachments. So yes, if you want to talk about Russian-Ukrainian conflict that's happening right now, I have a certain perception of what's going on, and we can do a whole show on that. And trying to be neutral as possible, without strictly focusing on love. And I had a professor in university, Poseidon, who's from. What was the island? What was the island that the Turks took over?
Cyprus.
Cyprus. Sorry, drew blank. He was from Cyprus, and his village is that the only way I can come see my village if I come to the top of the mountain of the Cyprus and I can look downhill. I cannot even go. I can see my house, but it's occupied by Turks now, right? So he has an emotional attachment to that, and maybe he has a vision now too. That one day I'll be able to walk into my house and it'll be Greece again. But to answer your question, Poseidon, I believe all this is done really to take us off balance in terms of like really get to the bottom of who we are and why we're here. Like it's again an external noise. However, nobody's going to stop you from feeling and thinking that way and wishing that Greece. But to what point? Okay, so we take Cyprus back. Do we go beyond that?
And I was just fucking around.
No, but me too. Let's continue. I like that.
That's what I thought.
Let's entertain that thought. We'll go beyond that because like places in Crimea have Greek names. So at some point,
well, places in the U.S. as well have Greek names.
no, but I mean like that's because we can claim that too, I guess. But historically, right? To what point do we go back? Like Israel claiming the land because historically it was Israel, right? Do we go back all the way back to ancient Greece and claim all the Mediterranean,
Well, no,
half of Mediterranean and the
Well, no, you
Black
can't.
Sea?
You can't do that
Why not?
because the people of today didn't cause that. They didn't. Like, I don't know how to explain this. I should not deal with the consequences of my father. Let's say, right?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
So
This is where consciousness has to exist
Yeah.
for emotional negotiation to be fair. Because when there's no consciousness, it becomes emotionally unfair. Because then there's no right or wrong. Now it's about war to win.
exactly.
So we need to be conscious, and everybody needs to be conscious. That's why consciousness now today is the only way to go. There's no backwards. So you bring up a really important point.
So like the Constantinople thing, it's a running joke on the internet. But the reason why you can't do that is because the people there today didn't cause the suffering of back then when it was conquered by the Ottoman Empire. So if you go to do that now, you're going to make people suffer who had nothing to do with that. You understand?
You sound like a pro-Russian because that's the argument that Russians say. Because Ukrainians hold Russians accountable for what Soviet Union did, right?
What do you mean?
Well, that's one of the political arguments now. Like you
you can hold governments have to be held accountable. Yeah, 100%. But I mean the
people themselves. Yeah.
The people themselves living there now.
Yeah.
They didn't do that.
No, of course not.
You know what I mean? So why should they eat shit, so to say?
I know, it's a valid point. However, here's we're going in the spiritual direction. No, Poseidon, thank you for this point.
No problem.
But this is up your alley. We hear about ancestral healing. Like in my perception, in my understanding, it could be even through spiritual religion, religious, and I use word religion as more of identify versus institution. There's a philosophy and there's understanding that your spiritual genetic upbringing sort of carries over from previous generations.
Yeah, there's generational, carryover.
Generation weight that you carry. And when you heal yourself from that generational trauma of, like, let's say, women in some countries, Middle Eastern countries, Mediterranean countries, where they were oppressed, where they were not only a second-class citizen, but also a second-class member in the families kind of thing. That pain was carried over through a female line all the way to the people. Now, even the people that live here in Canada and no longer bound by this, they still carry some of that pain associated with that. And as they heal themselves, that's some of the practice that I'm aware of, is they heal themselves to release themselves from the trauma. They're also healing their generations come previously, even the people that are no longer here.
Yes. That you and I can talk that same language.
Yeah.
Most people don't believe in that concept, nor do they even if they say they believe it, they haven't seen it because it's not something tangible. But yes, I think scientifically it's proven that we do have cellular memory that we carry from generation to generation. That's why when I had to break the generational patterns of my own family lineage, right? It was, I could be sitting here talking to you on your show, talking about owning a Chinese restaurant. I wouldn't be the same happy person I am, but I was gonna be owning a Chinese restaurant because that's just the way it goes. It's either the laundromat or the Chinese restaurant. So unfortunately, but I had to break through that generation.
Poseidon, what do you call that?
I'm sorry. What's the question?
Well, well, Susan refers to her if she was still like if she was true Chinese,
Yeah.
and she would own the laundromat or the restaurant. Like if you're true Greek, what happens?
Well, same thing. Greeks were in the restaurant.
Restaurant,
business.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
But I feel like that's not just a Chinese or Greek thing. I feel like that's a immigrant thing. Especially any immigrant that grew up in that came over and grew up in severe poverty and had to deal with famine back home.
Either that or not ability to have a business of your own. For whatever
Yeah.
reason, they come here and they have an opportunity to do so. They actually, even though it's a super hard work, it's a tangible.
It's survival. It's survival.
Also, another thing I just thought of: food. You don't really need a language for food. Food is kind of like like if it's good, it's good, right? Like I'll eat at a Chinese restaurant if it's good. I'll eat at a Russian restaurant if it's good. I'll eat at a Greek restaurant.
No, don't eat at the Russian restaurant.
No.
Come to my house. I'll make you food.
Yes,
Don't-
I'm
please.
just saying. I'm just using it as an example. So I think food. Everyone can understand food. It's universal. Like there's no real language for food. Like it's spices. You know,
Yeah, you
ingredients.
can point. I want this.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell Gordon
You know,
Ramsay that.
So I think
Trust me,
that's
he
why
feels the same
also,
way.
you know, it's not true Chinese or true Greek. It's just that immigrants, like Greek immigrants, when they came here in the 50s and the 60s, they didn't speak the language well, and you know they were already like 40 something. So good luck teaching them anything. What did they know that everyone knew? Food. They knew how to make food. So they like hot dogs here. They learned how to make hot. That's why the Greeks have La Belle Province. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, here the Quebecois, they like hot dogs, poutine, hamburgers. Bam, La Belle
Now we'll make
Province.
a gyro. Is it gyro or gyro?
Gyro.
It's a gyro.
It's a
Euro.
gyro.
Oh,
Sorry.
there you go.
Sorry,
There.
I was
No,
being,
no, it's okay.
I was being the racist.
But
No,
you see-
everyone says it wrong.
I just did too. That's the whole thing is that when we're emotionally connected to a goal, we will always succeed. So the people like the immigrants, like you said, Poseidon, that came overseas, immigrant here, their goal was to survive,
Yeah.
right? It's powerful. When we are emotionally connected to a goal, we win. I know because I when I went to Hong Kong when I was 24, I didn't have my university degree because I said, screw you. I'm not going to, you're not going to tell me to go to university if I don't need it to succeed. So I just left. I didn't speak the language. I didn't speak Cantonese. And also I wasn't born there. So I couldn't work there. So how the heck is a 24-year-old with $1,000 in her pocket, which went away in 3 weeks in Hong Kong, believe me, in the 90s, going to survive there, right? And I made it happen. And everybody said it was impossible. But I was emotionally connected to my goal in life to succeed, to be financially free by a certain time. Don't ask me. I was always in debt. How the heck I was going to be financially free in my 40s? I had no idea. But I was driven because I knew I had to break that pattern and give my family the life that they deserve. And I was the only one that can do it. So when we are emotionally driven to go towards something, we will always win. The thing we have to be tied to is the why. So for the immigrants that came, why? Well, because we had to survive, right? We're so disconnected to why we do what we do. We're constantly looking at what we are not and what we don't have, that we forget what we have. And I think that anchoring point is the point we have to stop all the time and anchor in. Is like, what is my superpower right now? Hey, you're in superhero movies. You should know superpower, right?
Well, I think my personal superpower is I bump head everywhere I go. So, like, you know, it's called insurance claim. That's my superpower.
Whatever it is.
That's the new
No
superhero, insurance claim. That's I just patented. We got to write it down. I like that, insurance claim. Everywhere I go, but not so much my head I bump. It's mostly my toes that I kick because my head is really close. You know, like I usually can sense objects around. You know, I have eyes, ears, hair. You know, but my toes are so far away. I constantly bump my toes on things. I broke toes a bunch of times walking into common household objects like my wife. You know, sorry. But there's You're right. I think my superpower is actually I'm able to envision positively the positive outcome without being attached to how do I get there. You know, like and this is something I've learned. This is a learned behavior. This is not something like I was born with. I think I was always positive in general as a kid. And it's also a lot to do with my upbringing, most likely. But later on in life, I've learned how important it is to envision positively the outcome. How do you get to that? It's often unknown. It's a curveball, right? Like you don't know. Like maybe there's going to be traffic on the 40, and you take some side street to get over and maybe take you longer, or maybe it'll be quicker. It doesn't matter. But there's always a certain way that you perceive the outcome to be positive. And it may not be exactly the way you want it, or also be open to things happening along the ways that are even better that you can imagine, or something so different. So like to have this open mind, I believe nowadays is a superpower, because we're constantly conditioned to like, oh no, you can't do it. You have to follow this path, or you got to follow this. But like, oh, look at this guy. Look how he did it. You know, yeah, you can look at this guy and take away some traits and tools that he used, but your path is still going to be your path.
Yeah, you need to be your barometer.
You need to be your barometer.
Yeah.
Like I tell Poseidon, he's Poseidon under 30. He's a young guy. He's a young, successful guy.
What? That's a baby.
Exactly, but he perceives himself that he's still
Well, successful is a big word.
well. You have a passion.
Yeah,
That's 99% of success.
I guess.
It's the only thing that creates success, by the
that's
way.
the only thing is like everything else doesn't matter. I would say, you know, I grew up playing basketball and I got hurt, and I use that as an excuse why I didn't continue. But I also, to be honest about it, because of I did it from the young age, and I had a bunch of physical and maybe even emotional injuries associated with basketball, I no longer perceived it as a passion, because there was all other stuff associated with that. So quitting basketball for me was easy, because I was no longer passionate about it. I did not have another passion, so that was a whole different other scenario. But you know, I often think about it, like I really consider myself a basketball player when I played, and I really loved it and enjoyed it. But when push came to shove, and I felt no longer happy doing it, because maybe I was in pain or not set for whatever reason. There was more than one reason. The decision was easy. I was like, I no longer enjoy this. This is no longer, I don't feel right doing it. If maybe it was a different scenario, I know support groups are important. Like, I think it's much easier for me to do this podcast knowing Poseidon is here, because he's sort of my support in a way. He can always help me out by pressing the button, by getting into conversation, by giving me some feedback. You know, support of my family helps me with that. So like kind of like keeps me going and pushing through this. I think support is important in my opinion. And like going back to my original statement with you being at the right time in my life, it was an extreme and enormous and most important support that helped me to go over that bump. And obviously it came from things like love, but you were there for a reason as well.
Yeah, well, that's where the universe or God or universal intervention is a real thing, right? I never take for granted. If somebody's put in front of me, I don't overthink it. I'm not an overthinker, right? I'm analytical, but I'm not an overthinker. And this is where, especially in the power of influence mastery, right? I teach that in my sales training, because I've been in sales. I trained sales teams. That was my career, right? Influence mastery is huge. And this is where connection is tied to. It's because people they want connection, but in fact, what does connection mean? When you really think about it, right? If you feel disconnected, it's not because people don't like you. It's not because you don't know how to talk to people. Everybody just wants to be able to be trusted and to trust. That's connection. So when you learn the art of how to meet somebody and get their trust within 5 minutes without saying too much, is where the power lies. And that is knowing your audience, right? And it doesn't have to be just in sales. By the way, we're selling all the time. From the moment you wake up, if it's the one skill we could teach young people, teach them how to sell. Teach them how to emotionally negotiate. Don't take, because in life, guess what? How are you going to get a movie role? You have to sell. How are you going to make a friend? You have to sell, right?
But what are you selling?
Exactly. That's the whole thing, right? But if we're even scared to go and influence and be a part of that connection, then you're never going to connect. So I deal with so many entrepreneurs and leaders that are so scared to put themselves out there because, number one, we're not trained. We're not trained. We're trained to just be a good girl from a young age, from our parents. Well, I'm not talking about boys, but my brothers too. It's like, just do what you're told. Be a good child, right? We're not taught to negotiate. And this is, you want success in life? Learn how to negotiate. Otherwise, how are you going to be successful?
Feel, felt, found, right?
Yes.
I know what you feel. I felt the same way. But what I found, I just gave a sales one-on-one lesson. We should charge for this podcast. Just, that's a very useful skill to have.
Yes.
It's going back to my ego and passions. Actually, sales is my education and practice as well. What I found was that when I did enter the world of professional sales, I actually taught sales in college here in Montreal, believe it or not, for a semester, which I realized that I love teaching, but I hate school. That administrative,
Me too.
that was awful. That was an awful experience in terms of administrative experience, but in terms of teaching, I had a wonderful time. But I've learned in sales early that if you don't like your product, it doesn't matter how good you are as a salesperson, you're not going to sell it because you don't even believe in it. And it's going to be visible. So it goes back to yourself. Like if you don't like yourself, like in my case, like you said, it was an actor. How can I sell myself if I don't like myself and I don't like my performance? And what I find in acting profession, it's true for a lot of people. They don't like to watch their own performances after they filmed it because they're self-critical. Please watch and listen to Suzanne. Is it only on podcasts? Where can we listen to your podcast?
It's on Apple, Spotify. Yeah, it's on Amazon as well. My gosh, it's on several platforms, but my most popular platform is Apple.
Apple. Do you have any videos, YouTube, or is it strictly audio? It's
just
strictly
audio. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us again, what's the name of the podcast?
The Heart of Truth.
Heart of Truth.
Yes.
And she is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. It is Susan Ham. She is a real life angel. She was an angel in my life. She still is an angel in my life. Last advice to the audience.
Be you. Be you. That's it.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank
you all. And you watched Alex Sass show. Listen to it. I'll see you next episode.
Thank you so much.
Ciao.